I believe that my ambitions are best satisfied when I am able to fulfill the ambition of those who pay my salary. And those are the farmers of Kerala district originally, and later on the farmers of Gujarat. They have paid my salary, and as long as I am able to satisfy their desires, their wants, I get rewarded.
Dr. Verghese Kurien, the name synonymous with the White Revolution. Winner of numerous national and international awards in recognition of his pioneering work. His radical innovations in dairy farming have transformed millions of lives, especially those of small farmers.
I have no doubt whatsoever about the future of India. It is destined to become one of the most powerful nations of this earth in a decade or two. Nobody can stop it. It's bound to happen.
Born on 26 November 1921 in Calicut, Kerala, Kurien graduated from Loyola College, Madras, as Chennai was then known. And studied engineering at Guindy Engineering College, now Anna University. He then went on a government scholarship to do his master's at Michigan State University in the United States. On his return, Kurien was posted in Anand, where he met a visionary leader of farmers, Tribhuvan Das Patel. Their association was to change the face of the dairy industry in India and usher in what later came to be known as the White Revolution.
He was a man who was a man of great integrity. He made no decisions on the basis of caste, creed, language, religion, region, nothing. He was genuinely a leader of farmers and thought only of their interest. And that is how when he saw me and met me and he developed a liking for me, he gave me a completely free hand to develop the cooperative as I wanted, to build it up as I wanted.
Kurien built up his own team. One important member in the early days was H.M. Dalaya, his friend from Michigan State University. Dalaya was a dairy technologist. So while Dalaya took care of the technical aspects, Kurien handled the administration.
Since I did not know much dairying, I brought in my colleague Dalaya. He really built up Amul dairy. I took care of talking to others. For example, if a governor came to visit the dairy, Dalaya would explain to him, this is a pasteurizer. Or he said, he knows all about it. In that case, he said, I have nothing further to say. And he would not talk to the governor. And the visit of the governor meant for half an hour ended up in 2 minutes. Whereas I will keep them occupied and amused and informed.
It was way back in 1946 that the first milk producers cooperative was formed in the Kheda district of Gujarat by Tribhuvan Das Patel. The driving force behind the concept was none other than Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. This was done to safeguard the interests of small and marginal farmers and protect them from the exploitation by middlemen. The movement later came to be known as the Anand pattern.
The Anand pattern was a structure that was tried out in Anand to procure, process and market the milk produced by farmers in Kerala district. The structure that was evolved was a cooperative structure. And it was evolved in this manner because in a commodity like milk, which is highly perishable, which is required to be marketed twice a day, every day of the year, And that too within a few hours of production, because within a few hours it will go bad. The bargaining power of the farmer to obtain for himself a good price is practically nil when there are only one or two buyers in the whole village. Therefore, the Anand pattern of cooperatives was a structure which procured the milk through a village cooperative, which then transported it to a dairy factory owned by the farmers and managed by the farmers, where it was processed, converted into products when necessary, and marketed nationally. And it's the pattern, therefore, which is owned, operated by farmers themselves, in order that they obtain for themselves all the margins of procuring, processing, and marketing, in addition to the price for milk.
In 1964, Lal Bahadur Shastri, the then Prime Minister of India, visited Anand to inaugurate a cattle feed plant. He expressed the desire to spend the night as a guest of a small farmer, and then spent the night meeting and talking to farmers. He also saw the working of the Milk Cooperative Society. He was so impressed that he told Kurien, "This is true development, because this not only develops milk, but it develops man." He wanted the Anand pattern to be replicated all over India. To achieve this, in 1965, the National Dairy Development Board was set up, with Kurien as the founder chairman. The brief given to the board was to replicate the Anand pattern all over India. And thus the foundation for Operation Flood had been laid.
The orientation is not profit, but how best to benefit those who supply milk to the dairy owned by the farmers. When you operate a dairy on this basis, then you will find that it cannot help but succeed. Best quality and cheapest price. You can never fail. Therefore, Amul was introduced in that manner.
The name Amul, derived from the Anand Milk Union Limited, was soon to become a household name and one of the best-known brand names in India. The earliest distributors of Amul in Bombay, as Mumbai was then known, were the Akbar Alis, and the main market competitor at the time was Polson's butter.
You see, we had to come out with a product against a well-established brand like Polson's. As I said, Polson was synonymous with butter. You see, Polson used to be, especially during summer when milk supply was low, every week the butter prices used to change. We did not follow the price variations in summer. So we consumer perceived us as a consumer-friendly product.
Well, the free hand that he gave us infused a kind of freshness in the advertising. By that I mean, it was people use this word consumer-friendly, and that is what we encapsulated in his advertising. Without thinking about it, this feeling of friendly, that Amul is a friendly organization which is here to serve the consumer with the best products at the lowest possible price. So, whether it was good or bad, Amul advertising which we produced, it was fresh. It was like we were talking to the housewife. And I think this helped to give us credibility and certainly win her attention.
Gradually, Amul came out with other products, such as cheese and milk powder. But the most significant thing about it was that for the first time anywhere in the world, these were made from buffalo milk, using totally indigenous technology.
We were told that milk powder cannot be made from buffalo milk. When the head of the dairy research institute in New Zealand came all the way here to tell me not to embark on such a fantastic project which is bound to fail. I said, no, it will not fail. And as you know, it didn't fail. And India today manufactures more milk powder than New Zealand. We produce something like 160,000 tons. So we have proven that scientific and technical advice given by advanced countries is very often influenced and determined by the commercial interests of that country from which the expert comes, not on the basis of facts.
Perhaps it was because of experiences like these that Kurien has developed an antipathy towards such agencies.
I don't know why people talk about foreign investment as a blessing. No one invests money in my country or in any other country without expectation to get more in return. Particularly if they talk about foreign investment in making butter or producing milk, which are low technology, which Indians themselves can do and are doing. If you want foreign investment, why don't you let us have some foreign investment in manufacturing cryogenic rockets?
Today, India is the largest producer of milk in the world. The milk cooperative movement has spread to different parts of the country, empowering small and marginal farmers. This has not only transformed their economic conditions, but has initiated constructive social change of far-reaching significance.
If you go to a village, as you have this evening in Kerala district, you will find farmers standing in line delivering their milk. What does it do to an untouchable to stand ahead of a high-caste Brahmin because he came earlier? What does it do to a high-caste Brahmin to stand behind an untouchable because he came after him? And what does it do to their thinking to have to do this twice a day, every day of the year? What does it do to both of them to wash their milk, both their milk, go into the same can of milk and to have this caste submerged in that can of milk? What does it do to their thinking when they watch another man come there to the village milk collecting center to buy milk because his buffalo is dry, and buy the milk of the Harijan and the Brahmin from the same can? Is it only orderly milk collection? Is it not a blow at the caste system?
Now we have started getting a fair price for our milk. Earlier, none of us made any profits. Now there are no more thefts in the village because people earn enough money and are happy. When the society started, Amul made arrangements for healthcare for cattle. Women saw this and realized the importance of healthcare for themselves too. Now Tribhuvan Das Foundation provides all medical facilities and women have greatly benefited from it.
Earlier, the middlemen used to buy a milk and not pay a fair price. Now that we have formed our own women's cooperative, we have benefited a great deal. All the milk is collected here and regular payments are made every 10 days. Earlier, men would keep all the money for themselves. Now, women get the money and are very economically independent.
Kurien Saab has contributed a great deal. It's only because of him that we have the dairy. This has provided livelihood to even small farmers. They have become prosperous and there is a social awakening. People revere Dr. Kurien so much that they keep asking for his photograph.
With the success of the White Revolution, other farmers also joined the cooperative movement. And soon, farmers of edible oil seeds, fruits and vegetables organized their own cooperatives under the National Dairy Development Board. Kurien has initiated and nurtured nearly 200 different businesses, generating annual revenues of almost 10,000 crore rupees. As the movement spread to different parts of India, it was felt that there was an urgent need for trained professional managers to work in rural areas. With this in mind, the Institute of Rural Management, or IRMA, was set up in 1979 with the specific purpose of training professional rural managers.
So the difference between growth and development is one of time period. Okay?
The greatest creation of Dr. Kurien is IRMA, because IRMA is going to produce Dr. Kurien. Only problem of IRMA is that it is not visible today. Like Amul was not visible for 25 years. After 25 years, Lal Bahadur Shastri saw Amul. So if you produce a graduate today, and when he enters the industry, it takes 25-year time for him to become top man, and then influence that industry to change his course or expand or whatever.
To have a successful Amul dairy, you need a chairman like Tribhuvandas. And frankly, as he would say, you also need a manager like Kurien. Now, we set up the Institute of Rural Management to produce the Kuriens, but we have no way of replicating Tribhuvandases. And that is our main problem. How to replicate Tribhuvandases.
People whom he liked was very, very loyal. And Tribhuvandas was one of them. He considered him as his own father. And Tribhuvandas, of course, treated him like his son. So they had a real bondage.
Kurien married Susan Molly Peter in 1953. They have a daughter, Nirmala.
We had an arranged marriage. The family knew each other because his father was a medical doctor, my father was a medical doctor. Both studied together from medical college, and they used to meet occasionally. And so, since they knew the family well, so they thought it will be a good match. Maniben is Sardar Patel's daughter. She used to come and stay with us very often. And then she used to tell me that I'm actually his second wife because he's actually married to the dairy profession.
It doesn't come second. When I'm in the office, I'm doing my office work. When I come home, I'm a husband.
I went to boarding when I was about 8 years old. So I really was very isolated from the fact that my father did anything worth its while till I passed out of school, which was when I was about 17, which was when I realized that, he was, a person of repute and people knew about him. But in school, I really didn't realize. I only knew that he came in a very battered ambassador, while the rest of my friends came in Mercedes Benzes. Actually, because I was in boarding school, time I spent with him at home was great. I mean, we played lots of games, carom, table tennis, badminton, cards, Chinese checkers. So I really had a very normal upbringing like any other father would spend. I really didn't think he was very busy either at that time. He was quite available. Whenever I had long weekends, he came to Bombay. He picked me up. We had pani puri on chapati. And we did we went for all the good movies running in town.
Well, he had no time for the family at all. He was so busy building the dairy, and then once NDDB started fighting with all the ministers and all the secretaries, But he was doing a job, and I thought I should do my job, looking after him. So, and there was nothing else in this place. I think I didn't do a bad job.
Maybe it was Kurien's brush with government officials in those days that influenced his perception of bureaucracy.
Yes, because most of them, there are honorable exceptions, of course, but most of them function in such a manner as to strengthen their hold on government. This is a government of the bureaucrats, by the bureaucrats, for the bureaucrats. So that is what I object to. They don't think it is a government of the people, and people should control it and benefit from it. So I am all for the abolition of the bureaucracy and let people's institution take over, like they have done in Amul Dairy.
With his educational qualifications, Kurien could have opted for a more lucrative job anywhere in the world. Why then did he choose a rather small, unknown place like Anand?
Well, I was compelled to come here because my education abroad was paid for by the then British government, and therefore my obligation to British government was transferred to the Indian government. So I was sent to Anand in 1949. I found this was a very dusty, small town of 10,000 people. Now, a lot of people there were not very modern. Roads, communication, everything was bad. And at that time, I could not get accommodation because I was a Christian, I was a meat eater, and above all, I was a bachelor, so nobody would give me any accommodation. So I had to live in the garage of the dairy. So that's how I started life here. There was no bathroom. 3 corrugated sheets made my bathroom. That's how I started. And looking back, I think it was good in the sense that I started with nothing. And whatever I may have achieved is entirely due to my efforts and the efforts of my colleagues. So I owed no one anything. Differently means I could have got a very high-paying salary in a big city. But I would not have received the warmth, the affection, the love of the people I work with and the people for whom I work in those environments. It is here that I found myself, and I'm glad that I stayed here.
And what he gave to whole entire country it is not possible to be quantified in any form, because it is multifold in many directions. You think milk production has increased, or somebody will say Amul brand has become strong, or some dairies have been put up and all, but you can look at the millions and millions of people who got employment out of that, and the income they derived, and the money they spent on education of their children. And when it comes to employment of women and development of children's education in villages, the whole country was fed, and India is drinking today 4 times more milk than it used to drink 3-4 decades ago. And its impact on the health and nutrition of the country and the increase in expectancy of the life, how do you quantify those things?
Both my parents were extremely excited when Siddharth was born. And right from, from the time that I came home from the hospital with Siddharth, my father would carry him and play with him. And as he grew older, he became, he used to bathe him and, do lots of things that probably he never did with me. And he still really enjoys his grandson more than anything in his life. And Siddharth always has an anecdote for me to say that, I'm the most precious thing in his life. And even today they have a lot of fun, and they have a lot of good times. And another thing he always told me as child or even today is life is like a chess game. And he says you have to plan it 3 moves ahead.
You're checkmated, darling. You're checkmated. No. You pull back. Checkmate. Leave it. Checkmate.
You can describe Dr. Kurien as a person who dedicated his life and who evolved into a great leader by virtue of being very close to the Indian society, especially poor, and learned to empathize the pains of the poverty. And then his commitment grew more and more as he empathized with them, understood them that what he is doing is much more, a very invaluable job. And his contribution in uplifting this poor is far better return than he would have got in monetary form.
He is a very warm-hearted person and easy to establish a rapport.
Well, I would say that fearlessness and integrity. He never compromised on integrity. And fearlessness was one factor which has stood him in good stead throughout his life and career. I know number of examples in his fight with the government, and he had been absolutely clear that if something had to be done, something had to be done.
It would have to be simplicity. I mean simplicity, intellectual simplicity. You can see take the most complex of problems and reduce it to a very simple line. Simplicity of his demeanor, simplicity of his way of life, simplicity of grappling with issues in management terms by having the most simple solutions.
His honesty and being faithful to something that he believes in and is wanting to uplift people who are poorer than him.
I think the other things that I really admire about my father is he's a thorough gentleman. Even today at 80, he will get up when my mother comes into the room. He's very respectful to women, and those are things that we don't see today. He basically believed that he had to spoil the women in his house, as he put it. And we were terribly spoiled, and we are still very spoiled by him. I think his worst quality is his stubbornness. He will not budge on many things. And my mother and myself find it extremely difficult when he's in that mode.
I would say that he was very difficult. He has been, during the working time, he had been very difficult. And difficulty would be in this sense that if you produce something which does not meet with his liking or his standards, he would tell you no on certain words. I mean, there are small things where the standards were laid. Today, when you look back in Anand, things are different because something was done at that time.
It hit me is when I read Nelson Mandela's autobiography. There's one sentence that hit me. He says that if there is a person with a very good heart and very good mind, the combination is unsurpassable. And I think my father has both those.
Having lived such an eventful life, how would Kurien like to sum up the philosophy of his life?
It is basically a man like me who has received a good education owes it to the state to give something in return. And if you can make this country a little better place to live in, even if it be for a few, then I think you derive a lot of satisfaction from it. So in a country like India, much can be done to improve matters. Everything you touch is capable of being improved. And if one uses one's intelligence, one training, one education in that direction, he will be fully rewarded and he will be very happy.
this rapidly changing world, where old values are fast fading and one's success is measured more in terms of money, what advice would the father of the White Revolution like to offer to the cynical youth of India?
This country, India, is a country which offers enormous opportunities to youth. So I could not understand why young Indians should want to go to emigrate to America or to England when so many opportunities here beckons them. And there they are not wanted. In fact, they are disliked because the color of their skin is brown. Particularly when they are very intelligent and hardworking people. They don't like it. All you can do is to earn some money. So it's better that they remain here and contribute to the well-being of their fellow man, where so much needs to be done. When they've got an education, an engineering degree, all these are subsidized education that they have enjoyed. And in return, they must contribute, not run away.
Kurien has received numerous national and international honors and awards for his achievements. In 1999, he was conferred with one of the country's highest civilian honors, the Padma Vibhushan, by the President of India.
Well, I'm very proud of him. The first was the Verghese Award in '63, and it's quite a whirl for me going from Anand. And I was so proud because, to know that he has achieved something, and that was only the beginning. And the other one that I remember is the Wattler Peace Prize in Netherlands. That was really something, the function, took your breath away. And then of course the World Food Prize, which is supposed to be very prestigious prize. And the next, there are so many in between.
For a man who is already a legend in his lifetime, how would Kurien like to be remembered by history?
As one who tried to do his best to improve the living standards of the milk producers of India, most of whom are small farmers, marginal farmers, and landless laborers. So that I was able to contribute in my own way to the uplifting of the living standards of the poor. That's how I'd like to be remembered.
He's very passionate about India. He has such faith in what India can do and what India will be.
I have no doubt whatsoever about the future of India. It is destined to become one of the most powerful nations of this earth in a decade or two. Nobody can stop it. It's bound to happen. And it is not necessarily a good thing, because you can look at the powerful nations of the earth today and you will find they're all arrogant. They want to dictate to developing countries. I would like to hope that when India becomes powerful, by the time she becomes powerful, she will also develop a kindly face, a humane face. And she will not only take care of India's interests, but of all developing nations and of all good causes.